Yeah, see, he's talking shit about Broside Phil.
Which I'm not a huge fan of Broside Phil.
And I talked about it before, like that absolute degenerate Broside Phil.
Detractor-wise, Broside Phil won because he's the first detractor who actually had a direct conversation with me, right?
The unhinged psychopathic rant of zero self-awareness you're about to see is rated R for retard.
No, unacceptable.
R for really special?
Acceptable.
I swear they're getting more strict about that shit by the second. Anyway, let's rewind to February 2nd. Phil ranted about how entitled this generation is, using DoorDash of all things as an example of people wasting their money. And yes, a video on that irony-laden rant will be coming. Unfortunately for Filbert, this did not manifest the $150 for the goal that's not a goal of support for both the day stream and the night stream. So the next day, February 3rd, Phil just opens with "Let's talk about detractors," and the rest will be remembered in the history of both YouTube and livestream fail, because the shit you're about to see is so out of pocket, even normies had to make fun of Phil. Anyhow, brace yourself. Morally superior douche-waffle Phil has some things he wants to say.
Today we're going to talk about a topic that a lot of people don't really want to talk about. They dance around it or they ignore it. Today I want to talk to you about basically the reality of having a group of people on the internet that hound you and stalk you. They call you a lol cow. They try to elicit a reaction from you. And I want to talk to you about basically how you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, and how you react to these people. I've changed my philosophy for the most part on how I react to these people recently, but it's to different levels of result. I basically just want to tear into this topic, okay? So, we will, on today's show, and more. There's a lot to talk about. So I'm excited to hang out with all of you for a nice level 1 podcast with my lesbian haircut this morning. So, sit back and relax. Let's do it. It's time for the show.
So if you pay attention, you're about to see a time jump. That's because the intro you just saw was the coming up on my pre-stream segment. Also, Phil, you don't have a fucking podcast. So rather than you slog through his bullshit, we're jumping straight to the start of the fun.
Before we get to the Obsidian story, okay, we should cover a story that I want to talk about today, all right, regarding the situation of trolling, of how to address it or ignore it. Allow me to get into it right now. I think it's pertinent because the one gifted sub that we just got is from a troll, right? So let's actually just address it very factually, very matter-of-factly from what just happened, okay? So we got a group of people, there you go, who stalk me on the internet, who basically can't get enough of Darkside Phil. They microanalyze every aspect of my life. They do it for a couple of reasons. For some people, they get entertainment out of it. For some people, they actually make money doing it. They actually have YouTube channels where they restream or they clip and they do toxic negative stuff, and they feel like they're getting big benefit out of doing it, right? Some of these people are just mentally cracked, while some of them make thousands upon thousands of dollars basically trying to bully me on the internet. What's funny about it is, it really doesn't have a negative effect on me in any way. Even though they have their own weirdo communities of people who stalk me and say toxic things, I just go on my merry way and do my own thing, and I'm good. I'm doing well. My streams do good. I get good support. Everything's fine. So it's not like these people are actually like hurting me in any way, but they act like they are.
So he just starts with the cope right when the chute opens. He mentions that people bully him, imagine being 43 and saying that, and states that he's going to have an entire segment on his show about this, but also that it doesn't affect him in any way. This, of course, begs the question, why are you talking about this if it doesn't affect you? If it truly doesn't matter, you don't pull the ripcord on your standard content because someone gifted a sub that said you had a lesbian haircut, and don't worry, he'll address that in a bit, you know, because it totally didn't bother him. And take note of the scam language. Let's address it factually. Whenever Phil says factually, what he means is, you've managed to get deep in my feelings and I'm about to speak about it like a TED Talk. Because his facts are literally just a spiral. One troll sub equals organized stalkers, which become weirdo communities, which become mentally cracked, which becomes making thousands upon thousands of dollars. But I'm totally fine. Well, Jesus Christ, Phil, pick a lane. Either we're powerless nobodies or we're making thousands and thousands of dollars off you. Because if detractors are doing that well, then congrats, Phil. You just admitted the people you call irrelevant are more clever than you in monetizing your psychopathic episodes. And the funniest part is, he projects the obsession. He says that we can't get enough of Darkside Phil. Phil, the only person here who can't get enough of something is you can't get enough of the detractors. You're the one who's building a whole segment around us. You're the one making us the co-host. But then he tries the ego band-aid of the, my streams do good, I get good support, everything's fine. Do you know who doesn't have to announce everything's fine mid-rant? Someone for whom everything is fine. This isn't unbothered, this is damage control. He's not being bullied, he's being clipped and quoted, and that terrifies him, because it removes the one thing he needs to survive, the ability to rewrite what he said 5 minutes ago. So, yeah, totally unaffected. We can tell. Anyway, thank you for taking the time from your gaming channel to discuss detractors as a way to prove how unaffected you are. Surely this will go exactly how you have planned it in your head, Phil.
They think that their online bullying somehow gives them some kind of relevance on the planet, when in reality it doesn't. All it does is it makes people who are, how can I say, of a certain mental aptitude, they seek each other out and they have these weird social relationships on the internet together because they never would have these kind of relationships in real life. They're just not normal. This is not how normal people behave. They don't hyperfixate on someone, stalk every aspect of their life, and basically bully them endlessly and then laugh about it in a group. That's the behavior of like a 5-year-old on a schoolyard. You know, a group of bullies bullying some kid. It's not what adults do. And certainly it's not what intelligent, mature people do, because they have busy things to do with their lives. You know, they have families, they have kids, they have jobs, they have school. They have things they have to do that are more important to them because it's constructive to them. They don't spend all of their time hyperfixating on others on the outside because they're so busy with their own lives. But this group of people don't have their own lives. Their life is sitting eternally on the internet, hating on people. Okay? Some of these people probably don't just fixate on me, but fixate on a few different people who they bounce between every day and laugh at, making fun of, despite the fact that their lives are absolutely miserable.
This is completely disingenuous, and he knows it. He's hoping he can convince his dents that all detractors are unemployed weirdos who survive exclusively on hating Phil for money, and that's just not reality. Most detractors I know are gainfully employed. Some write code, some work in software, hell, one has a doctorate, though I don't know what the field is. I've mentioned before I'm a project manager. Others are blue-collar workers, they have trades, normal adults with jobs, families, responsibilities. This idea that detractors don't have lives is projection, because we can see what not having a life looks like through Phil. Stream all day, total wine for the essentials, maybe some grocery shopping, and his words, sitting on the couch watching movies or listening to music with his ma wife. Dude is out here living life turned up to 11, let me tell you. And here's the part Phil will never address honestly. People don't wake up one day and say, you know what would be a great side hustle? Detracting on Darkside Phil. No, there's always a trigger. Wolverine Doll called it the Burnell trigger, the moment someone goes from not caring at all to paying attention. For me, it was the push-up arc. That was the moment where I said, no, I have to talk about this, I can't just stew on it anymore. I saw someone on That Being Said mention that Phil's old Addressing the Negativity stream was their trigger point. And that's the pattern every single time. It's never money first. It's never obsession first. It's watching something so absurd, dishonest, or self-contradictory that you stop and go, wait, did he really just say that? And once that happens, Phil panics, because documentation looks like stalking to someone who relies on rewriting history in real time. That's why he keeps hammering this idea that normal people don't do this. Because if normal, employed, functional adults are choosing to clip him and detract anyway, then the problem isn't their lives. It's his behavior. So no, Phil, this isn't 5-year-olds on a playground. It's adults noticing patterns, and you hate that, because patterns don't go away just because you say, I'm doing fine, out loud.
So why do I bring this up? Well, as you could see, it just happened, right? These people do what they can to try to interject into the content. Here we go again. To try to interject into my life. And for the most part, I found ways to basically just move on and ignore it. Doesn't affect me at all. At this point, to be honest, I'm bulletproof to this shit. It just doesn't have any kind of control. But every once in a while, things, sadly, either do affect stuff and I have to bring them up and explain what's going on or why. And then people are like, well, why are you bringing up the trolls?
Yes, go listen again. You just heard him say, I'm bulletproof to this shit. It doesn't have any kind of control. And literally the next sentence said, things sadly do affect stuff. We don't affect Phil, except when we do.
right? Or in the case of point of this person who literally has like 10 accounts on Kick and just drops gifted subs left and right with supposedly insulting names on them. People are like, well, number one, why does that happen on your stream? And number two, you know, are you going to bring it up? Do you ignore it? What do you do? Right? Well, in this case particularly, I can tell you, Kick has a problem. Kick has a problem where even if you ban someone, they could still contribute to your stream. Now, does that make any sense? No. On YouTube, if you get banned, can you contribute to someone's stream? No. On Twitch, if you get banned, can you contribute to someone's stream? No. But Kick is stupid. Kick is kind of playing catch up with everyone else. Not to say that they're not a good streaming service. They are, but they have these loopholes. I mean, hell, they had a loophole where people could use the channel points to say things on your channel when they were banned. It's just so dumb. So this is a loophole in their system. Will they eventually patch it? I don't know. For them, maybe they just want more money. Remember, they get a little cut of everything, so maybe they just want more money and they figure this is the way to make it. I don't know.
Love that "kick it stupid" rant followed by the realization, oh, maybe I shouldn't bite the hand that feeds me. Kick is a good platform. They just need to catch up. And I'll say there's like a 90% chance the devs didn't even think about gifting or kicks being used by banned people because they, like all normal people, either thought, one, who would give the streamer money if they were banned? Or two, who would complain about money irrespective of the message? Like, why would the guy streaming be upset he was getting money? And the answer to number two is Phil, only Phil. And he'll try to put on a good front about how he's okay with it because it gives him money, which, again, dented behavior. Please fucking stop giving Phil money. But in reality, Phil's entire value system is tied up in how he is perceived, and those messages coming in making fun of him and the way he handles it confirms how mentally weak he is. So he wants it to stop. I mean, not by changing his behavior. Jesus, what are you, crazy? No, he wants Kick to solve the problem for him. Because of course he does.
But for me, if I don't have pop-ups for Kick, right? If people who contribute on Kick don't see a pop-up on the screen, likely they're going to feel left out. They're going to feel like, well, that's not fair. Why don't I get credit for my contribution? So it's a choice of all or nothing. Either all pop-ups show up, including legit supportive people and trolls, or no pop-ups pop up, and therefore no one will ever get credit for this stuff, right? So I've chosen essentially the I guess, lesser of two evils. I would much rather have everyone get credit for their contributions rather than no one get credit, if you know what I'm saying. So that's why I just kind of put up with it, right? But then the question is, do I address it? Do I ignore it, right? How do I handle it?
You ignore it. You say, congrats to Bob, who got a membership. Clear the notification, don't draw attention to the person who gave it, and move on. But that means Phil wouldn't get a chance to have his vengeance, which is why he can't ignore it, and why we're here right now.
And this has been an ongoing question ever since I started on the internet. You know, when I first started facing this online bullying and harassment way back when, my very first, I guess, person who really was upset with me and started trolling me was actually a former, I guess, fan who, I guess, felt slighted because I guess they either wanted attention or something. I guess they thought there was some kind of a transaction or interaction I had with them that I treated them poorly. They quit my community and they made an account called DSP Cult Leader. Okay? Then they actually legitimately started making troll posts and videos saying, DSP is actually not a gamer.
Yes.
He's a cultist.
Yes.
He's trying to have a cult of children on the internet that he's trying to brainwash and follow him.
Yes.
Now, when you say that, that sounds pretty crazy, doesn't it? It sounds pretty wild. But people, you know, back then, that was the first real, true group of detractors that I ever had, although we didn't call them detractors at the time. For the most part, guess what we did? Laughed. Everyone in my community laughed at it. We didn't pay any attention or any mind. Every once in a while, we would point it out. There would be a comment on a video, and we'd laugh at it, and you know, what an idiot. And we would just move on. But that's because at that point, that was before there was this giant internet movement called This Is How You Don't Play, which basically made it cool and hip to make fun of Darkside Phil.
Again, this is his ego in play. Phil didn't do anything wrong. His gameplay didn't suck. He didn't make racist or sexist comments. None of the criticism of Evil AJ, big ups, and This Is How You Don't Play had merit. No. You see, it was just that it was cool to make fun of Phil. It was clout. It was piggybacking off his success. Because to reflect on the fact that This Is How You Don't Play exploded and then change his behavior to prevent people from further creating them, Phil would have to admit that he was wrong. He didn't do it perfect, that he was somehow flawed. But that can't be the case. Phil's mom always told him that he was the perfect little angel and the specialist boy. It's literally the Skinner meme. Could I be the problem? No, it's these millions of people who laugh at my shit gameplay. It's their fault.
So it was easy to ignore it. It wasn't the norm. It wasn't a big deal, nor was there a group of huge, obsessed people who were following me. Okay? So as the years moved on, things changed. As we all know, that This Is How You Don't Play movement did happen, and I reacted poorly. My reaction to that, instead of laughing at it or with it, was to get angry. How dare these people steal my content? How dare they make these videos about me? This is not fair. It's not fair use, and they didn't get my permission, and blah, blah, blah. Now, obviously, my attitudes have completely changed over the years, but back then, that was my initial reaction, and so the internet reacted appropriately to that, saying, oh, so this guy thinks his shit doesn't stink and thinks that he's above reproach and no one can criticize him. Screw this guy, he sucks. And the entire internet's attitude toward me changed, except for my hardcore fan base. So although I retained enough of a viewership to keep going and maintain a business, the whole major feeling toward me by the internet was toxic and negative rather than positive. Instead of people being along for the ride, laughing at the joke of the content that I was putting out, they were instead saying, oh, it's no longer good. I won't watch Dark Side Phil anymore. Instead, I'll just go watch the This Is How You Don't Play highlight so we can all laugh at him and he gets nothing out of it. He doesn't benefit from it, right? And that lasted a while. Admittedly, all right, it did. I didn't go and buy into it like I should have. I didn't really participate in it in a positive way, all right? Then over the years, I grew up, I matured, I became an interactive streamer. And really, that's kind of when things changed. When I started actually just hanging out with the audience every day and having a good time and having conversation, rather than it being me offline, making a video, uploading it, and hoping that you consume it, it was us hanging out together every day, kind of making the content together, if that makes sense. Having that social interaction changed everything. And now we're going on 9 years that I've been an interactive streamer. I absolutely love it way more than what I did offline before. I really do. I think that it's better content. It's more organic. It's actually more meaningful to the internet than me just sitting here playing a game, ignoring anyone who's in the chat, just doing, off-the-cuff commentary, which used to basically be way extreme, sexual comments and racial comments and just anything risque or offensive to get a rise out of my audience so people would talk about what DSP did today.
This is where Phil pretends to take responsibility, but only just enough to kind of sound mature. He says, I reacted poorly. All right, that's the admission. But listen to what immediately follows. The story instantly becomes, I reacted poorly, and then the internet turned toxic, and then people watched highlight channels instead of me, and then I didn't benefit. So even when he's owning it, the damage still isn't his fault. The consequences are something that happened to him, not something his behavior caused. And look at what he actually mourns, that he feels bad about. Not his reputation, not his credibility, not his trust. He says people laughed somewhere else and he gets nothing out of it. That's his real grievance. This isn't about criticism. It's about someone else getting attention other than him. He didn't lose viewers because he handled it badly, according to Phil. He lost viewers because other people stole the laughs. Then he fast forwards to his little redemption arc. I grew up. I matured. I became an interactive streamer. Translation, oh, the problem wasn't how I acted. God, no. The problem was the format. But here's the quiet self-own he slips in there at the end. He admits his old content was intentionally extreme. Sexual comments, racial comments, anything offensive to get a rise so people would talk about him. But when people did talk about him, when they clipped it, when they laughed at those clips, suddenly that attention was toxic. Suddenly that was unfair. Phil didn't change his values, he changed his delivery method, and he still can't admit the difference between being criticized and losing control of the narrative he wants to push. And that's why Phil's story will never resolve until he fundamentally changes how he thinks about himself and the outside world.
Instead, it's more natural. When you watch my content today, you're getting the real Phil, as opposed to some character who I was trying to portray some over-the-top exaggeration in order to try to get you to laugh. And so, things changed for the better. And over the last, 10 years, I have tried to evolve to become a better person and a better creator, to learn to laugh at myself and my mistakes, to try to improve as a person. But what's happened is, this audience, who at one point were hyperfixated on me because I was this full of myself, feeling like I was above reproach content creator, said, well, wait a minute. All these years we've been making fun of Phil. We've been getting views and popularity based off of it. But now he's changing, and that's not good for us, because that means that what are we going to make fun of now? Right? What are we going to do? So what ended up happening was they would hyperfixate on more nuanced stuff that really wasn't part of my content. Gee, I wonder what Phil spends his money on behind the scenes, mobile games and shit like that.
I don't normally stop in mid-sentence, but I'm making an exception here. Phil, people didn't hyperfixate on your spending because you were changing. They hyperfixated because you wouldn't shut up about being broke while lighting money on fire in real time. You didn't get scrutinized because you became the real Phil. You got scrutinized because you'd run the same routine for years. Guys, I'm struggling. Guys, I might have to cut back. One of my favorites, of course. Guys, we're going to have to eat lunch meat sandwiches, I guess. Can't even go out and have a meal out on my day off. And then it's immediately mobile game spending, paid gotcha nonsense, impulse buys, whatever. And then you begged again. And it wasn't a joke. It wasn't a bit. You said it dead serious, like the audience is supposed to feel guilty for not subsidizing your piss-poor lifestyle choices. That's why people pay attention to where the money goes. Because you keep turning your finances into part of the show. You made it everyone's problem, then got mad when people noticed the math wasn't fucking mathing. And this, I've evolved, I've learned to laugh at myself speech is just another rewrite because you haven't changed in the ways that matter. You still berate viewers, you still punish disagreement. Fuck, I've lost count of how many times someone disagrees with a subjective take you have and you don't respond with, well, I see it differently. You respond with, wrong. And then you tack on dunce, moron, idiot at the end like you're grading a test that you yourself wrote. So no, Phil, detractors didn't get more nuanced because you became too wholesome to mock. They got more specific because you stopped being able to deny the obvious stuff. So you tried to rebrand the pushback as, well, they needed me to be bad for content. That's deflection, not growth. It's you trying to turn accountability into a conspiracy. Oh my gosh, if they criticize me, it's because they must need me. No, we criticize you because you keep doing the same manipulative routine and then call yourself a better person and expect financial incentives for your supposed growth. When in reality, you slopped a new coat of paint over an already shit personality. You learned what to hide better. You didn't change. You're trying to learn how to better present yourself for maximum profit while still being the same toxic piece of shit you've always been. You're operating in bad faith, and it's fucking disgusting.
Hey, I know, let's harass Phil's wife. That's a good idea. Someone who's not even part of his business or content. Let's find out stuff about her and try to harass her on the internet and say horrible things about her, right? That's what it's become now. Rather than it being actually based on, oh, Phil's a bad actor online and we wish that he would get better and let's make fun of him, it's become, let's just start horrible memes that maybe aren't even based anywhere factually in reality, but just pass them on and regurgitate them over and over until it becomes so normalized to bully Phil that it's a joke. The bullying now is the joke. It's not even that Phil did something bad and we must call him to task for it, but instead, let's just make fun of him and all laugh at the joke together so we feel better about ourselves. And of course, the people, again, who've been making the videos are now making tons of money off of this ridiculous bullying content that's not based in reality. Now, it's gotten to such a point that even if I bring up anything about any of this at any point, people call it a crash out. I want you to think about that. Crashing out. That whole phrase. It insinuates like a car wreck, a train wreck, that something is so horribly going wrong that you can't keep your eyes away. Ooh, someone is freaking out. Let's watch it today, right?
Yes, Phil. In internet terms, a crash out is when someone embarrasses themselves because they lack impulse control and or emotional regulation. It's not some mysterious smear campaign, it's a description of your behavior. And no, addressing a troll doesn't automatically mean one is crashing out. Plenty of creators do it without melting down. The way Phil does it is the crash out. Because you can see it, you can hear it. Phil's tone changes, his cadence shifts, his rage spikes. The stream stops being the stream and becomes about the troll. That's the tell. When someone can alter your behavior with a single message or a gifted sub, that's not unbothered, that's rattled. And the irony here is thick. Phil's upset that people watch these moments the same way people watch a car wreck, but Phil is the one slamming the brakes midstream and turning the camera towards the wreck. No one is forcing him to do that. Phil, if it didn't truly matter, you'd ignore it. If it didn't truly affect you, you wouldn't escalate. If it truly wasn't a big deal, this show wouldn't be happening right now. That's why people call it a crash out. Not because Phil did nothing wrong and not because of some secret meme factory, but because viewers can watch the emotional control leave the room in real time. You don't get called out for responding. You get called out for losing composure while insisting you're not.
They'll actually say that this segment of my podcast is a crash out.
Yes.
Because I'm simply addressing it. Even though that's not what the term means, that's what it's become on. If anyone addresses anything on the internet that's considered, I don't know, controversial or anything that's criticism, that's a crash out. Well, it's not, but that's what these people say. All right. So just the fact that I bring up anything, supposedly I'm crashing out, right? If you say so, you know, logical people think, hey, I'm a streamer. I have the right to talk about any topic I want. If today I want to talk about this, I will. If tomorrow I want to ignore it, I will. That's my prerogative as a creator. And you have no control over it. You can call it a crash out if you want. But if I address something logically, what's wrong with that?
And this is where Phil just flat out pretends not to understand the term crash out. No one is saying anytime you address criticism, that's a crash out, Phil. That's a straw man argument, and you know it. A crash out isn't what you talk about, it's how you talk about it. Phil keeps acting like the definition is, if he speaks on a topic, that's a crash out. Phil, that's not it. What actually happens is, Phil gets emotionally hijacked, derails the stream, escalates, contradicts himself, and spends 10 minutes insisting he's calm while clearly not being calm. That's the crash out. And this, I have the right to talk about anything I want, correct? Argument is a complete dodge. No one said you don't have the right. No one is trying to control you. We're describing the result. You absolutely have the right to talk about it, Phil, and people absolutely have the right to say, holy shit, he's spiraling again. These things aren't mutually exclusive, and calling this logical doesn't magically make it logical. If it were logical, you wouldn't stop the show over a troll, loop the same grievance for years, insist you're unbothered while sounding furious, or relitigate the same talking points every single fucking time. Logic doesn't require this much reassurance. But here's the big tell. He says, if today I want to talk about it, I will. If tomorrow I want to ignore it, I will. Except you don't ignore it, Phil. You can't. That's why we're here again. That's why this keeps happening. That's why the term exists. This isn't people abusing a term or a word. It's people watching a pattern repeat itself over and over and giving it a name. You're not being silenced. You're being observed, and that's what actually bothers you.
Now, if I address something with a lot of passion and a lot of emotion, because maybe something is going on in the moment, like if I'm crashing out over Street Fighter 6 because I'm playing online and the game dropped my inputs for the 17th time in a row that day, you know, is there anything wrong with that? People used to call that a natural reaction and loved it, a rage moment. They loved that in content. Now it's a crash out to be clipped and turned into some kind of sensationalist content, and then you say, oh, it's a horrible thing, they did bully the person. No, that's called being human, actually. If you're not aware, humans get emotional over things, they get worked up, their adrenaline gets pumped up, their blood pressure goes up, and they have reactions. That's part of the natural course of life. It happens offline, it happens online, it happens everywhere. But these people have turned this now into like a clip farm where anyone who reacts to anything, it's a crash out and get attention on it for yourself, right?
I know I talk about emotional control a lot. Truth be told, it was and probably still is one of my weaknesses, so I understand emotional responses. But we're not talking about a quick, god damn it. We're not talking about a heat-of-the-moment pop-off that lasts 2 seconds. We're talking about unhinged escalation. Because what you're about to see isn't Phil reacting to a game, it's Phil turning a loss into a personal vendetta. He's not mad at the mechanics, he's not mad at RNG, he's not even mad at himself. He's mad at a person he's never met, and what he says to or about this person encapsulates and defines Phil's online brand. Bad thing happens, claim victimhood, assert superiority, insult the other party. Watch.
So you won because the game lags, drops my inputs, you play a fucking pattern with a safe mode fucking bitch character. You suck ass at the fucking game, you don't react to anything, and then I can't do anything because it drops my moves. Congrats, you played the pattern and you won, you suck shit. Eat my ass.
That's not a rage moment, that's a routine. This isn't frustration leaking out. It's a script he's comfortable running because in his mind, he's always justified. That loss isn't just unlucky, it's unfair. The opponent didn't just win, they're trash. And Phil isn't just upset, he's right. And this is the part he keeps calling, I'm just being human. But you just saw how quickly it stops being about the game, how fast it turns personal, how easily he reaches for humiliation instead of self-reflection. This isn't someone blowing off steam. This is someone who feels entitled to lash out and then be applauded for it.
So you could say, well, you should just ignore it all. Don't ever address trolls. Ignore them completely. Act like they don't exist. I have tried to do that. If you haven't noticed, there's pop-ups on the screen of people who are gifting these stupid subs, and I can't stop that unless I turn off all pop-ups, so I just choose to not address it and ignore it. But then, oh look, They got attention on Phil's stream. So you see, he's a lol cow because we got the attention we wanted when the pop-up happened. But I ignored it. Doesn't matter. See? So if you address the trolls, that's a crash out. They got your attention. They win. If you ignore the trolls, they still got the attention they wanted. They win. Isn't that kind of weird? They set up situations where they feel like no matter how the person reacts, they still got the response that they wanted. And therefore, they win and they get the clip and they get the content. So do you see the point that I'm trying to make here is that when you're in a situation like I am and many others are, it's not just me. There are many other people on the internet who have these weird, obsessed communities around them that stalk their every move, that spin every action they do into something negative, toxic, a crash out per se. Well, no matter what we do, we're wrong. There's no way that we could possibly do something right in the eyes of these people because the only way they get their jollies off is to say that we did something wrong. So how do you address it then, right? Do you ignore it? Do you completely take it head on? What do you do? I'll give you an example. Yesterday, as my late stream was ending, okay, I'd raised around $100 in support for playing 2 indie games last night. Personally, I find that's fine. That's good. For indie games, a 2-hour stream, that's great support. I have no problem with that at all, right? But I made a comment and said, you know, last time that we did indie games, actually, we had done much better. And I think the thing is that we had already played these games once before. This was the second session, okay? And that's probably why we saw a little bit of a decrease of support. Next week, we're going to do another stream of these games to finish them up. Regardless of the fact that the support had dwindled a little bit, I still want to play them and finish them because I like these games, okay? So a troll in chat says, hey, you see, Phil's all about the money. All he cares about is the money. That's why he streams the money, the money, the money. To which I looked at the chat and I actually responded and I said, how could that be true? I literally just said on stream, I'm going to play these games next week anyway, regardless of the fact, that the support had gone down this stream from the last one. I'm actually playing them because I like them, not because of the level of support. Okay? So now I've countered the troll's argument with a fact, with logic. They don't have a further argument. They can't even counter it because there's nothing else to say. I've proven them wrong. So what do? Ha! I got you to respond. You see, you're crashing out now. So if you ignore the troll criticism, which isn't really criticism, it's an attempt to goad you to get you to respond. If you ignore it, they're right, correct? Because if there's no response, if there's no defense, that must mean that it's true. Right? You know, all these years that people say horrible things about me and my family members and people around me, if I didn't address it, it must be true. Or else Phil would have already addressed it and debunked it, right? So that's the attitude they have. Ignoring the nonsense basically keeps it off of my streams, sure, except for when they spam my chats and stuff like that. But then they just say it's true because Phil couldn't disprove it, right? So then if I counter it and I disprove it, guess what? Oh, you see, even though you disproved what we said, you took the bait, you gave us the clip crash out moment, and now we get more content out of it. So either way you react is wrong, and they get what they want.
And now Phil will completely collapse into circular logic. He says, if I address the trolls, they win. If I ignore the trolls, they win. Oh, okay, but that only makes sense if any acknowledgement whatsoever counts as losing. And if that's your framework, then the problem isn't trolls. The problem is that you're incapable of not centering yourself in the interaction. Because here's what actually happens. A pop-up appears. That's not you losing. That's automation. But what turns it into content is you stopping the stream to litigate it. Ignoring trolls doesn't mean I still think about them, but I'm mad the pop-ups existed. Ignoring trolls means you don't spiral, you don't editorialize, you don't monologue, you don't spend 10 minutes trying to prove you're right. And this example he gives is perfect because it proves the opposite of what he thinks it does. He brings up the indie game stream and says, I raised about $100. That's fine. I'm happy with that. Then, unprompted, he adds, but last time we did better. That's not a troll forcing a narrative. That's you introducing money into the conversation. So when someone says, Phil only cares about money, that didn't come from nowhere. You made revenue the topic, then got mad someone commented on it. And here's the key contradiction. He says, I countered them with facts and logic. I proved them wrong. Okay, cool. Then why are we still here? If the argument was settled, the stream would move on. Instead, he immediately reframes this as, they tricked me into responding. That's coping. Because you didn't respond accidentally. You responded because it bothered you. And this idea that if I don't respond, it must be true is actually paranoia. Normal people don't assume silence equates guilt. They assume silence means not worth engaging. Phil can't do that because silence feels like a loss to him. And we know how Phil thinks about taking a loss. So he traps himself into this fake no-win scenario. If I ignore it, I lose. If I address it, I lose. Therefore, everyone and everything is unfair. No, the missing option, as I've said before, is emotional regulation. If you're going to respond, do so briefly. Don't escalate. Don't monologue. Don't keep talking about it for 20 goddamn minutes. That's the part he never acknowledges, because if he did, the crash out label would all of a sudden make sense. We're not forcing reactions, Phil. This is you insisting on having the last word every single time, and then blaming everyone else when that turns into content. That's the contradiction.
You see? So the attitude that I have today is very simple. If I see something stupid on a stream, like when I see this guy gifting a sub and it says Phil's lesbian haircut reel is their name, right? Now I can't stop that contribution. I don't want to turn off all pop-ups on my stream. I want to have credit for those who are actually going to support me legitimately, okay? So when I see that pop up, I decide to react and I say, well, yeah, Phil's lesbian haircut, because lesbians, all right, try to have a haircut that emulates that of like a manly man. That's the point. When you say lesbian haircut, you're thinking a manly haircut. So you're saying that I went and I got a manly haircut. Okay. Makes sense. Thanks. And thanks for the contribution, stupid. Done, right? But now I've crashed out. Even though I've addressed it, I've embarrassed them publicly for being so stupid that they thought that was an insult, and it's not. But now, I've crashed out over it, right? Because I addressed it. So here's the thing. I can address whatever I want, say whatever I want, in any way, shape, or form, and I'll enjoy it, and my actual positive audience will enjoy it, and the trolls can do whatever they want with it. It doesn't matter, because trolls are insignificant. Trolls have absolutely no impact at all on anything. They're an annoyance sometimes. If the idiot comes into my chat with his millionth troll account for today and starts spamming, and all the normal chatters like, oh god, this idiot again, this mental midget is in the chat doing this. I mean, what kind of a guy, what kind of a life could he have if he's literally making 50 to 100 sock accounts every day just to spam a small-time streamer's chat, right? Like, it doesn't even make sense that he'd be behaving like that. It's insane. But, he's doing it is wild. It's weird. So we all just like, and then we have to, moderate him or whatever. But for the most part, I'll ignore it. I'm not going to bring it up because it doesn't affect me. Really, they're in their own weird, bizarro world where they think that their existence actually matters to someone, that they actually have an impact on anyone's life. They don't. They're all just miserable wretches who have actually found a way to locate themselves on the internet, to latch onto each other, and to basically make a parasocial community off of me based on clowning on me, despite the fact that they don't affect me.
Really listen to what the guy is saying here. I'll address whatever I want, however I want, and I'll enjoy it. Trolls are insignificant. They don't affect me at all. Okay, again, Phil, then why are we still here? You could have been playing whatever fucking game or Lego build that you had planned, but no. Instead, Phil, you just spent 20 straight minutes explaining what trolls want, explaining how they think, explaining how they win, but explaining also how it doesn't matter, and explaining how miserable their lives must be. It seems like obsession is at least a two-way street at this point. If trolls are obsessed with you, you seem fairly obsessed with trolls. And this haircut example is especially telling. He says, I embarrassed them publicly. But remember, he calmly addresses things logically, but that's not what he just said. He said he embarrassed them. Phil's saying, I dunked on them. I humiliated them. I have proven I am superior. So which is it, Phil? Are trolls insignificant? Or are they worth stopping your whole show so you can feel like you're the big dick in the locker room? And note the escalation yet again. All of a sudden, a pop-up became speculation about sock accounts, speculation about the person's mental health, speculation about their entire life, speculation about how miserable they must be, all while insisting, well, it doesn't affect me. And there it is, Phil. You wanted to know where the crash out is? That's one. Not the pop-up, not the name, but the fact that a single message turned into a character study, a moral judgment, and a fucking sermon about imaginary people. And the irony is brutal. He accuses others of being parasocial while inventing a whole inner life for a stranger he's never fucking met. Phil asserts he makes 50 to 100 sock accounts a day, but you don't know that, Phil. Phil asks, what kind of life could he have? You don't know that either, Phil. But you need to believe it, because the alternative is admitting that regular people can get under your skin. And then we end with the biggest contradiction of all. They don't affect me. They have no impact. They don't matter. Says the guy who just centered his entire stream around them. If trolls truly didn't matter, they wouldn't live rent-free in every explanation you give for your own behavior. And you're not aura farming right now. You're trying to act like a victim and untouchable at the same time. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth, and the longer you talk, Phil, the more you're perceived as pathetic. After that last rant, Phil starts looping pretty hard, so we're going to skip forward a touch.
Like, oh yes, you're going to bring my wife's name up in a troll sub. Yeah, because you don't have anything to actually say of intelligence. So you give a schoolyard insult because you have no fucking brain. Like, you just pick on someone who literally has never done anything to you because you feel like it makes you feel better about yourself. It says more about you than it ever says about me or my wife or my family. You see, it really does. It says that you are a very, very sad person, that your life is horrible, you're probably poor, you're just sitting there miserable, and the only way that you can ever have a modicum, a tiny piece of happiness, is to try to bring others down. Your existence is worthless. And the thing is, you could change that. You have to understand, you could change that. If you actually motivated yourself to do something constructive and positive with your life, go work out, right? Go get a job. Go get a job.
Go get a job. Go get a job.
Get a hobby that's constructive. Get some friends. Go donate your time to helping people, right? You could go do charity work, go to a soup kitchen, do Habitat for Humanity. For goodness sake, if you have nothing to do with your time but just sit around and hurt people on the internet, you certainly have time that you can donate to help people, right? But the thing is, you have to motivate yourself to be better. Instead of focusing on, I just want to dump on someone and be toxic, which is the easy way to exist, you actually have to realize you're wasting your life and try to turn it around to do something better with it. Now, not everyone can do that because a lot of people are very mentally weak. I mean, hell, people who join online cults who hate people are mentally weak. That's why you joined the cult to begin with. You have to break that level of control and go off and do something for yourself. Okay? Just do it. Seriously, you'll feel so much better after 3 hours of building a house for someone who doesn't have one than 3 hours of sitting on the internet dumping on a streamer. Because you'll actually say, I did that. I helped out a family in need, rather than I crapped on someone who I don't even affect.
Oh my, Phil. I thought we had a bad one before, but this right here, this is the crash out. Because remember, trolls are insignificant. They don't matter. They don't affect him. Now, watch him spend 3 uninterrupted minutes inventing an entirely fictional biography for a stranger who bought a $5 gifted sub. According to Phil, this guy is unintelligent, poor, miserable, jobless, friendless, mentally weak, in a cult, wasting his life and in desperate need to work with Habitat for Humanity. And he got all that from a username. This is what unaffected looks like. Also, let's talk about the hypocrisy for half a second. Bill is lecturing someone about getting a job, going outside, touching grass, helping others, donating time, and working out, during a stream where he's begging for money and screaming at his imaginary enemies. Phil, you are not the motivational speaker you think you are. And this whole bring my wife's name up shield, even if you think that's crossing a line, watch what he does with it. Instead of saying, that's unacceptable, and moving on, he uses it as a launchpad to unload pure venomous abuse, the exact thing he claims makes detractors evil. You don't get to say bullying is wrong while calling someone worthless, poor, mentally weak, cult-brained, or a waste of oxygen. That's not the moral high ground, that's projection with a sermon attached. And the best part, he still says, you don't affect me. Immediately after delivering a TED Talk titled, Why I Think About You Constantly. If trolls are insignificant, we wouldn't be able to watch your blood pressure rise as you talk about them, Phil. This isn't wisdom. This isn't growth. This isn't being human. This is a man spiraling, moralizing, and inventing enemies out of thin fucking air so he can feel superior for 5 minutes, after which he insists he's totally fine. And this, Phil, is why people watch.
You know? But that's it. These people are nuts. They need help. We have an entire group of people. Now, it's not a whole generation, but certainly it's this most recent generation who've grown up always online. And they don't have anyone who's supervising them. They don't have anyone who's watching them, anyone who's guiding them through life to say, whoa, what are you doing with your free time? That's not right. This is how humans have existed before and been healthy and happy. This is what you should seek with your time. Not this new toxic online culture of crap. This is actually the worst possible thing that you could do with your time. But no one's looking at it. And what's happening is we're seeing a whole generation of people grow up broken. They're not socially trained. They don't know how to interact with people. They don't even understand social cues and things. Instead, they just are weirdos who sit around doing bizarre fucking things. It's just really cracked human behavior that should be being analyzed by people who have the power to help and speak up and fix it, but it's not. It's actually going completely unrecognized and completely unobserved. And then when we have horrible things happening, right? This person went nuts and went on a violence spree somewhere. And we say, how could this have possibly happened? Well, did you ever, for one moment of your fucking time, look at that person and their lifestyle and see what they were doing?
I'm gonna let him cook a little bit more, but I have to ask, how the fuck did we get here?
Because I guarantee you those people who do that stuff probably sit online all day doing toxic shit on the internet. They don't have friends. They don't have family who care about them. They just sit there with absolutely no purpose to their lives. And then one day they snap. And that's who becomes your next crazy mass violence committer because no one analyzed or cared about the situation. It shouldn't exist. It's busted and broken, okay? For me, there's not much I can really do about it. And I've accepted that fact. I've come to the point where it's like, if this person, every time they gift a sub, I just have to shake my head and be like, cracked individual, can't stop it. No reason to really address it. But if I want to say, hey, look, even your joke is stupid. A lesbian haircut is a manly haircut, so I have a good haircut, thanks. I can do that if I want. It's my prerogative. I don't have to ignore everything. I can make a joke. If I have to, sadly, do some moderation on a stream or something because the moderators aren't around, I can do that. I can joke about it. I can take it seriously. I can ignore it. It's all within my power. The truth is, no matter how I react, it's a crash out to them, so it doesn't really matter. But for my audience, I want you to understand the reason that I felt like I wanted to talk about this today very rationally and calmly is because I've been seeing it pop up more and more. This guy who literally sits here with 50 sock accounts a day, the guy's not well. And we all know that. Like, the thing is, at one point, it's like, okay, it's kind of funny, the guy's coming back. But once he does it the millionth day in a row, and once everyone in chat's like, dude, what is going on with this guy? Yeah, we all recognize that the guy's nuts.
Phil had to have been a theater kid in high school because he just speed ran from troll sub to society is collapsing in under 60 seconds. A guy gives a sub with a dumb name and Phil's like, this is the newest generation, unsupervised, broken, no social cues, and that's why mass violence happens. Brother, that is not rational. That is a panic attack with chapters. Also, did you catch the tactic? He can't just say that's crossing a line and move on. He has to inflate it to a moral crusade so he can feel like the adult in the room. But the adult in the room just said, these people are nuts. They need help. And then one day they snap and become your next mass violence committer. And all of this is over a troll username. Bro, that's not analysis, that's catastrophizing. The thing you do when you want your audience to feel like you're not just annoyed, but you're a victim of a cultural plague. And it's also a dirty little sleight of hand. If detractors are future violent criminals, then any criticism of Phil becomes morally suspect. Not wrong, not unfair, fucking dangerous. Convenient how that works, isn't it? And the hypocrisy is insane because he's been yelling about how people are always online and broken as if he's not a man who has been online as a full-time job for over a goddamn decade. Obsessively tracking trolls, sock accounts, memes, and chat behavior like he's running the surveillance state. You're not outside this phenomenon, Phil. You're the mascot of it. Then he does the thing that he always does. He invents a whole biography. 50 sock accounts a day. The guy's not well. We all recognize he's nuts. And again, first he's calm and rational, then it becomes this guy is mentally unwell, broken, unsupervised, etc., etc. That's not calm. That's you spiraling while insisting you're not spiraling. And the best part is he still can't keep his story straight. He says, no reason to address it. Then immediately, but I can address it if I want. Then, no matter how I react, they call it a crash out. But then, so I wanted to talk about this today very rationally and calmly. Phil, you're doing it again. You're actively crashing out about crash out accusations. You took a troll sub and turned it into a generational thesis, a psychological diagnosis, a public safety warning, and a fucking sermon about modern culture. And you end it with, we all know the guy's nuts. This is why people clip you, dude. Not because the internet is broken, but because you can't just take an L and keep streaming. You have to win. You turn everything into a courtroom drama where you're judge, victim, and the expert witness, and the troll is simultaneously irrelevant, yet powerful enough to destroy society. Pick a fucking lane.
And it's just, it's just crazy that these people have actually normalized this level of behavior to think that this is fine, this is normal, this is fun stuff for the internet. It's not. It's busted and broken, but we get it because we're of sound mind. These people are not. That's why they behave like this, and that's why they think it's okay to. They've actually familiarized themselves with another group of people who are cracked just like them, and they have these weird social groups and cult-like discussions on Discord about this shit. It's bizarre shit. I never wanted to get into it, but people send me the information and say, look what happened to them. Oh my God. These people actually are just, they're not well. And no one talks to them about it. No one tries to help them. They're just left to their own devices. That's why we're having the situation we have with humanity right now, quite frankly.
Mein Phil, are we saying it would be better to put the detractors in the camps?
We've advanced technology so much, we can have all these relationships over the internet, but humanity's not really ready for it, right? We're not. We've got communities of people who are broken, and now they've formed toxic groups of hating love, if that makes sense. They love to hate. That's not human thought process. That's actual, illness. So, moving forward, I'm not going to address it all the time, but I might every once in a while and laugh at it. But understand, I just want to make this abundantly clear. It doesn't affect me. Because people say, how can you everyday stream when you have all these people who dump on you and say these things about you? Because it doesn't affect me at all. It doesn't. There are people who are committing crimes against me every day, stealing my content, illegally live restreaming it. That sadly does affect me business-wise. But as a person or as a creator or as someone who has fun with the content he puts out, who cares what these idiots say? They're not you, they're not me. We're having a good time together, right? Why would anyone give a crap about this stuff? Oh no, you gave me more money. Oh shucks. What a horrible thing, right? So it is what it is. From time to time, you may notice, sadly, I do have to address it. I do have to go and moderate or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But there's nothing I can do. That's just the reality of being a full-time creator, is that sometimes I do have to address it. But understand, when everything for them, they've tried to organize into a win, it's not a win. Every crash out that they address means that they lose, because it means they have no life, and they actually think that it's important to say that Phil freaked out about something today, when in reality, it's not important at all. I'm just some dude on the internet streaming games. Who gives a shit if Phil crashed out? If the biggest thing in your life today was saying Phil crashed out and I observed it, you have no life. Done. Let's do some shout outs. Someone did a $1.98 tip. I have no idea why they go out of their way to do like $1 and change. But they said, I think your haircut looks good considering you have hair recession. Many men your age are slick bald. You seem to have a full head of thick hair. A blessing at your age. My friend was bald by 29. See, now, people will say, well, you see, that's not a fully positive comment. So if Phil addresses that, he's taken the bait. And now people will clip farm it. Like, what's wrong with me addressing getting older? Have I not said that my goal is to age gracefully, that I'm not going to be doing things like dyeing my hair club for men, or anything like that? I'll do things that naturally I can do to improve myself. I'll change my diet. I'll work out and lose weight, and I'll get, more muscular because I want to live longer. I want to be there longer with my wife, right? But I'm not going to do these crazy, I'm going to dye my hair, I'm going to do this crap. I'm just not going to do that, okay? But for me to address this $2 tip, apparently is a horrible thing. It's a crash out, right? What? No, you're the crash out. You're the weirdo who thinks that if I actually factually address this comment in a normal way, that it's a bad thing.
Yes, I know there was more, but my God, this is already nearly an hour. This is where it stops being about trolls entirely and turns into full-blown projection. According to Phil, we now have a broken generation, cult-like Discord cells, mass mental illness, humanity not being ready for the internet, and societal collapse. All because a guy keeps gifting subs with dumb fucking names. This is no longer commentary, this is delusion inflation. Notice the pattern. Every time Phil feels embarrassed, the scope expands. It's never, wow, that crossed a line, but we'll move on. It's always, these people are not of sound mind. This is illness. This explains what's wrong with humanity. Again, I said it before, this is catastrophizing. The psychological defense where you turn a small irritation into a world-ending threat so you never have to admit that it simply bothered you. And the contradiction just keeps stacking. He says, it doesn't affect me at all. Followed immediately by, they are committing crimes against me every day. It affects me business-wise. I have to moderate. I have to address it sometimes. I have to explain this to my audience. You don't get to say, it doesn't affect me, after a 30-minute fucking dissertation about how it affects you, society, and the future of humanity. At this point, trolls are more of a threat to the world than poverty, gang wars, and fentanyl. And then we hit the funniest part of the entire rant. He says, if the biggest thing in your life today was saying Phil crashed out, well then you have no life. My brother in Christ, you just spent over half an hour psychoanalyzing strangers based on their usernames, inventing their finances, diagnosing their mental illness, predicting violent crime, and explaining their Discord culture because they said that you crashed out. If that's not irony, I don't know what is. And then, oh, chef's kiss, he immediately does another crash out over a $2 tip. A tip that was mostly positive. A tip he could have said, thanks, and just moved on from. Instead, he stops the stream dead, again, to preemptively argue with imaginary people who might say he reacted wrong. The fact that he's constantly arguing with a hypothetical audience in his own head is surely a sign of mental stability. I know, I base all my real-world decision on what randos on the internet think of my online persona. And this whole rant ends exactly where it started. I'm calm, I'm rational, I'm unbothered, followed by yet another monologue, another lecture, justification, and derailment. And then, done. Let's do shout-outs. At this point, I don't even think the audience was seeking closure. I think they were just exhausted from hearing you talk, Phil. You're not being persecuted. You're being observed repeating the same behavior and getting mad that people notice. And the reason Crash Out sticks isn't because people are mean. Rather, it's because no matter how many times he says, it doesn't affect me, his behavior keeps proving the exact opposite. Big ups to my members, newbies, neophytes, and the god tier gym rats. I appreciate each one of you. Until next time, swole is the goal for a troll. Lift heavy, eat clean. And to semi-quote South Park, sir, I am not a crash out. You, in fact, are the crash out.
No, you're the crash out.
No, sir, you're the crash out.
No, you're the crash out.